Is I be on it, be on it.
Welcome to your favorite show, The Discussion. I'm your host, Chelsea Okunji. Thank you for joining us on the GBKM network. If you haven't yet, you should download our app. Search GBKM on Android or iOS. Today we have a very special topic. It's called Promoting the African Culture. And with me today, I have a very special guest as well joining me in the studio. I'm excited to introduce who this is. She is a two-time published author, an advocate for educating African students and children about the culture, and she is just an all-round rounder. Please help me in welcoming Akiwa Irie.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for
Thank
having me. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, Aki. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, how did you get into writing children's books?
I got into writing children's books because I happen to have kids. As I became a mother, I've always been fascinated with African history, African culture. And when I became a mother, I wanted to share more about my history and culture with my kids using picture books. And at the time that I was searching, I was shocked that I didn't find anything that I would read to my kids. And that was what led me I thought, why don't I fix this problem? Maybe there are other mothers out there like me who would like to introduce their kids to African history and culture. And that was why I decided to become an author. Yes.
Yes, definitely. That's actually pretty cool because I know there are so many mothers out there who would like to do what you're doing, but now with your help they'll be able to do it even like easily. Um,
Yes.
so where exactly did your journey begin?
Well, my journey began as a mom, and I decided to write this book. My first step was just writing. I spent about 3 years just researching. When I decided to write the book, I decided to write on Queen Idia first because she was close to home. I see her mask almost everywhere because I'm Benin and I see her
Mm-hmm.
mask
Mm-hmm.
in like I saw it on Jill Scott's wall. I see it in all sorts of places on social media. Her mask is used as the representation of Pan Africanism,
Yes.
and I often wonder if people who use this mask and use this image know the history and the story of this mask, and that was why I decided to write on Queen Media. And I spent a long time researching on her story, and that was where I began. That was where the journey began, reading as much as I could on Queen Media.
That's very good because there aren't a lot of like stories out there that touch on Queen Idia's um, basically her story. So it's interesting because her mask is everywhere, almost everywhere you can turn to, you see her mask. So it's interesting that that's what helped you to start this journey. I just have a question about like tell us a little bit more about your journey in the sense that what struggles did you face as an upcoming publisher or trying to put this story out there, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think one of the first struggles that I faced as someone who had never written a children's book and wanted to write a children's book was
Hmm.
that I was faced with analysis paralysis. And I spent a long time writing my first draft and reading and researching and wanting to make it perfect and wanting to include every single detail about Queen Idia in what was to be a children's book.
Yeah.
And every time I shared my book with editors and people in the industry, it was rejected. And I was told that this is not going to work. And it took me a while to realize and to get to the point of realizing that for a children's book, which is what I was trying to create, it could not include everything. And I had to cut it down and I had to exclude a lot about Queen Idia's story. in my final book, but I did summarize it and I included the key elements about what she stood for so that a kid who is 4, 5, 6 would understand and be engaged with her without getting too caught up in the details. That might be a little bit too much for kids. So that was one of the challenges that I faced in my journey. As soon as I cut it down and I decided to focus on what kids, I decided to focus on what could connect Queen Idia to today's kids, which is dancing. It opened up a huge window for me, and the book just took off from there. I had my final manuscript, which was more focused on dancing, but I also brought in elements that made Idia who she is, which is Idia is a warrior. She was spiritual. I brought all of that in, and I also put in as much detail that I couldn't put it in final story. I put it in fact pages at the back of the book that would help parents teach kids even more about who Idia was and about the Benin Kingdom and about our accomplishments. Once I had the final story finalized, I started illustrating, and this is where the fun began.
Right.
A long time interviewing illustrators because I wanted my book to be very engaging.
Yes.
And I found an illustrator that worked magic. She created beautiful image that I still love, and I can't believe this is my book when I look at it. She created beautiful images to accompany the story, and I thought that that was it. I thought, okay, I have written a beautiful book.
Okay.
Here you go, the whole world, everybody come and buy it. But then I realized that writing a book is one part of the equation, and marketing the book is another part of the equation.
That's true.
And I have been tackling that as best as I can. I'm learning more every day, and it's fun. It's been fun learning not only how to write a book, but also how to market the book. And with marketing the book came the website, the social media pages, and all of the content that I am creating to accompany my book.
You see, that's the thing, and I'm very happy that you touched upon this because most people don't realize that from the inception of your idea to when it's birthed to when it's actually here, and then the marketing, those are two different things completely. And
Yes.
it's good that you spoke about the illustration and the illustrator as well because I looked through the book online and I saw these images and I was like, this is beautiful. They're very, even as an adult, I want to read this book. They're very eye-catching. It's like, it's lifelike and it's very, very interesting and engaging. So that has been an interesting journey so far. What's the time frame that you would say since when you started thinking about this until when you had your final draft and your final copy in your hand? Like how long per se, if you were to give it an estimate? 4 years or four
Yes.
months?
4 years.
4 years. Wow.
Yeah, because like I mentioned, I was stuck in analysis paralysis for 3 years. I kept writing and rewriting and researching. I know so much about Queen Idia and her story and all the little details and what I was putting into a children's book. And that was one of the mistakes that I made was I spent so much time research, which is good. Now I know a lot
Yeah.
about the history and Queen Idia and everything that she did. But I spent a long time. The first 3 years was spent just researching. And by the time I had my final manuscript to when I had the book in my hand, it was 1 year. Interestingly, I have another book which I just published, and I was able to write that, publish that, and get the final book in my hand in 8 months. So I'm
Eight
getting
months. I was going to ask about your second book and how long that took. I would have to say it seems like starting a project or anything anyone wants to start at first, it takes a long time for you to get it going. But once you get the hang of it, I mean, moving forward wouldn't take so long. And you just confirmed this by saying that your second book took all about 8 months from, idea, inception to final manuscript. That's amazing. Congratulations on that as well. So I guess you already answered this question about what your aha moment was by saying when you became a mom and saw the need to want to have African story out there for children. Was there any particular turning point where you said, okay, I'm going to be the one to do this. I'm not going to wait for anyone else to, um, try and get this done? Was there
Yeah,
like a light bulb switch?
yeah. I think it was when another aha moment for me was when my kids saw the illustrations for the first time. They were so wow. They were so impressed.
I
And
can
kids can't
imagine.
this. They were so in love with it that I
Oh.
realized that I had something here.
Hmm.
And that was an aha moment. And it was at that point that I said, because initially I was writing a book to fulfill what I thought was one need, which was write just one book and fill the industry, or just give one book on African history to the industry and be done with it. I didn't think I was going to write more books or become this publisher or take it as far as I have taken it. But when my kids saw the illustrations and how much they loved it and how they kept asking for more, then that was an aha moment. And I said, why stop here? Why not take it a little? Why not go further? Another aha moment I've had is when like you just mentioned,
Hmm.
a lot of adults actually do not know a lot about African history. And I hear a
Okay.
lot of them say, because my book, my target age range is 8 to 12.
Yeah.
And a lot of adults correct me and they say, no, it's 8 to 99 because we love this book. We learned.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's another aha moment that I had that my market isn't really just kids, it's
Yes.
adults.
I mean, I told you, I'm going to read this book. I saw it online and I was like, you know what? I could actually learn a lot about this book. I wouldn't even to be honest, I didn't know about Queen Idia's story until I started researching and then, going through the book and I was like, this is interesting. You see this face almost everywhere and no one knows really what the story is behind it. Well, I wouldn't say no one knows, but it's not widely known. So I thought it was interesting that you picked Queen Idia's story first. Moving forward to your second book, I see that it's not a Nigerian book. Is this something that you want to do across all African countries, or do you have any specific countries that you want to focus on?
What I'm looking for in my books are stories from about African legends from hits today can relate with. And when I heard Queen Ijinga's story about how she wasn't her brother didn't want her to go to school and her brother was
Mm-hmm.
bullying her, but she overcame that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, you know what, this she's pretty cool. I think kids today would like this story. And that was how I selected her. And that's how I think I'm gonna select my stories going forward. I'm looking for stories in African history that kids today would that will resonate with today's kids. The stories are to teach kids about these legends, but also teach them lessons about how to persevere. Ethics, integrity are also embedded in my stories as well.
That's very interesting. I go back to when I was growing up, thinking of the books that I had at the time, that I was reading when I was growing up, and I wish that I was able to learn about these books or like read books like what you have right now, like with Idia's story. Growing up, I feel like it's such a mindset shift in the sense that it's very empowering. I particularly love Queen Idia's story because it's also a woman who is doing I mean, she's a warrior, she's strong. So it teaches like young girls to, aspire for greatness, go ahead and be strong, go out there and you'll be able to take over the world. So I'm really excited about this. Hopefully all of our viewers will be able to check it out as well. Now, I know we've spoken a bit about motherhood and the impact that your motherhood has had on your books. Um, what would you say are some of the advantages of, doing this? And if there are any disadvantages, what would you say they are?
Oh, the advantage of doing this as a mother is that I have my very own focus group, like in house. I don't have to pay them. They give
Yeah,
they give me feedback whenever I want, and
exactly.
they have to listen to my stories. One of the disadvantages I would say is it's quite time consuming. Writing this book, in addition to um, I do have a full time job as well. In addition to being a mother, and I try to be an in present. I try to be, and I'm sorry about the background noise.
That's
I try to
okay.
in-person mother, someone that's
Mm-hmm.
always there actively with my kids. So, and I find that sometimes writing the book does take away from time that I can spend with them, and it's that is challenging. But having kids, knowing what they like and what they don't like, has been very helpful for me because um, today's kids are not the same as when I was growing up.
That's
And if
true.
you notice, there's a shift even in what they're being taught and what they're being exposed to.
Yes.
Um, the low hanging fruit, and a very easy example is to look at what Disney is putting out these days.
Yeah.
Before they had movies like Beauty and the Beast and
Exactly.
White, where horrific things were happening to people as part of storytelling to kids.
Mm-hmm.
In today's world, you can't do that anymore with kids. And so, even though some of these stories, um, it's real life, right? So in
Yeah.
real life, bad things happen. But I know that my kids do not want to hear some of the things that have happened
Exactly.
in history, and I can use my kids as a yardstick. That how would I feel reading about this particular aspect of this history to my kids? If my kids are not going to able to tolerate this, I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
put it in my book. I'm going to find a way to smooth it out in the way that I'm telling the story, but it's softer and it's not as hard hitting.
That is just amazing because that is completely true. I remember growing up on Disney and all of those shows, and yeah, it was a little bit scary listening to those stories. But right now we're going to have to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing the importance of representation of African culture, especially in media today and to children. Stay with us. When we get back, we'll be discussing this.
Hi, it's Andrea Barrett, and I'm the host of a brand new show, 360 Wellness, right here on the GBKM network. Join us Tuesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. Whether you're a stay-at-home parent, a senior, a student, a working professional, or an entrepreneur, join us for information, tips, and strategies that will keep you well and get you well. Join us live at www.gbkm.tv or download our app, GBKM, on iOS or Android. 360 Wellness. Eat well, live well. Hi, it's Andrea.
Welcome back to the discussion. If you're just joining us, I'm your host, Chelsea Okunji, and I have a very special guest here today, Ekiwa Aire, who has been discussing and dropping some gems on how to basically start up your, promote the African culture with her books. She's a two-time author, and she has just been giving us some really good insight. So now, if you're just joining us, welcome back. Ekiwa, just before the break, we were going to touch upon representation, especially in the media for Africans and the African community. What would you say is your take on this, and how has your book contributed to representation of, Africans?
Yes, I think that what I found is that Africa, and I'm biased because I'm African and Nigerian, love Africa, but I find that representation of Africa and Nigeria and all of its countries in the media, it's getting better, but
Okay.
there is a bit of bias.
Mm-hmm.
You see Africa as a place that needs help. You see Africa
Yes.
as a place that needs. There's always a little question mark regarding Africa and what you see in the media. And though Africa needs help, and though African history, there are some aspects of the history that are not ideal, I still think that there's a lot of good that's coming out of Africa and a lot of good that came out of Africa. And my books are very much pro Africa. My content is pro Africa. My brand is pro Africa. And I think that that is important because while kids are going to hear from mainstream media
Mm-hmm.
that Africa needs help and this is what's wrong and this is how we can how we Africa needs to do better. If they are exposed to the other side of the coin, then they have a more balanced view.
Yeah.
And also with kids in school, I know that I grew up and all of the African kids in school in the diaspora here. I'm a kid. I was once a kid and I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in the diaspora. And I know what it felt like to have my history not quite represented in a positive light and to
Mm.
look at other kids and to see their history presented in a more positive light and their culture and heritage presented in a good way, whereas mine was either brushed over or spoken of as in a way that you're so lucky that you're here and you're not
Hmm.
where. where is not a good place. So I'm really glad that kids today have my books and
Yes.
other books. I'm not the only one that's doing this. There are many other African authors who are looking to create a more positive view for kids so that they could be more proud of where they come from and for their identity. Another aha moment that I had
Yes.
was I initially thought that my books were for African kids, and I was going to create all of these books to help African kids become more confident and proud of where they come from. But I realized that my books are not only for African kids, they're for all kids. All kids need to learn about African history, African heritage, and culture. And all kids need to be able to see Africa in both lights. So
Yeah.
the way mainstream shows Africa and the way we're showing Africa, we the storytellers, we the owners of the culture, are showing our continents and our countries.
This is very interesting because it's very good that you mentioned the fact that it's not just for African kids. We're technically changing the narrative of our culture and our heritage, showcasing the rich and just interesting parts of it, and also educating those who do not know. So imagine other kids of color or other kids just in general who read about, stories that you're publishing and become curious or start forming their own, identity of what Africa is like based on your books, other people's books, and then what they see and hear in the media as well. So that's very good. I would say it's a very huge cultural shift, one that we definitely need. And as I was going through your page as well, I noticed that there is a blog and there is also like merchandise, and there are so many more things that came before or after the book. My question to you is, did you have all of this in mind, or what came first? The blog, the merchandise, the book? How did it all start?
Book came first. The book is the anchor. The books are the
Okay.
anchor to support the books and to market the books. There are lots of products. And I always think of my model is Disney. What would Disney do when they write a book? When they
That's
publish,
true. They'd
they,
make a pen
yeah.
if they could. Everything, anything.
What did you say?
I said Disney, they would make every and anything out of anything
Yes,
they're promoting.
yes, yes. They
So
would
right.
create the T-shirts and everything to
Yes.
go with it. And so I'm just copying who I think is doing it quite well. The T-shirts, there are more to come because the illustrations are so great. The
Yes.
T-shirts are selling well. My kids love them. Other people love them. The blog came after as well. It's just promotional content to help with the selling of the books. I also have coloring books that go with my books as
Oh.
well, just to help with engaging kids with these stories. The coloring books are not just coloring pages. They have crosswords and word searches and comprehension questions and connect the dots any which way to get kids just subliminally thinking and changing the way that they think about Africa and our culture and heritage.
That's very good. So it's also an engaging and educational, read basically for children, not just entertaining or giving us a bit of our history. So
Yeah.
now, what would you say is your main goal with your entire project, be it the merchandise, the blog, the books? What is the main goal that we're working at here?
My goal is to change the narrative, or not to change the narrative, to provide a different view of the narrative. Others that have their current narrative, they can hold on to that if they don't want to change that. But I want to provide people, or parents or educators who want to engage with kids and provide them with a different view of African history and culture. I want to give them that opportunity. I want to give them the resources to teach about African history and culture with a
Yes.
different light, the more positive light. And it would get to a point that it's not so literal anymore. It's not just
Yes.
being taught in class. It'll become mainstream. And you
Yes.
see that with other cultures that have a brand with the Asian culture, the Indian culture, the Italian culture, they have their brands. So they have the good side of their brand, and they have some of the negative sides of their brand. I don't always see that with the African culture. So I would just like to give the African narrative a different brand, a more positive brand. That is the goal, and that is why I started with kids, because it always starts with
It
kids.
always starts with kids.
Biases and the prejudices that exist in the world, they are taught. And if we can teach kids at a younger age a different point of view, a different narrative, I think that is going to create a snowball effect later on. I might not see it in my lifetime, but I hope that this is what I can give back to my heritage and my culture.
Beautiful. Now I know these books are also like your babies in a way, and usually mothers are not supposed to have a preference. But what would you say is your preference between your two books?
I love my Idia book. I really love it. It's my first baby. I learned a lot with her. I made a
Yeah,
lot of mistakes with the Idia book than I did with the Inshinga book. The Inshinga book came out less flaws than the Idia book. I see all the flaws in the Idia book. No one has seen them. When I published it,
yeah.
and I was like, oh my God, this is still in there. I'm waiting for people to call me out, and no one is, and it's almost all sold out with the first version of the book
Wow.
with the errors in it, and I fixed it with the next version of the book.
Okay.
So far, so good. But I love both of my books, but I would say that if I had to choose, the Idiot book is my favorite.
Yes, that's understandable. India is like the birth of everything. And
Yeah.
just lastly, before we wrap up the interview here, this is a question about you as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a 9 to 5er, as a superwoman, basically. How are you finding navigating everything you're doing? Especially in these times where things are a little bit different given COVID.
It's a lot, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, and I would have to shout out to my core here. My husband has been so helpful. My sister has been so helpful. I don't know
Oh,
how I would have done any of this without the help of my husband and my sister, and even my mom, my dad. Um, I'm lucky that I have people around me that are as helpful as they are, and I'm leaning into them a lot, more than I think they would like, but I am leaning into them a lot to help me out.
that's what family is there for.
Yeah, exactly. And that is how I'm able to navigate. And interestingly, COVID has been quite helpful to me because
Ooh,
I'm working from home now, and from home I can
right,
do quite a few things. I could do two things at the same time, 9 to 5, and quickly do something for the book and meet deadlines regarding the book at the same time. I don't think that I would have been quite as successful if I had in the office every day of the week.
right.
This book, may not have lingered, may not have written book two quite as quickly as I have, if not for the current structure, the work structure that COVID has provided. So in a way, it's been it's been a bit of it's been a bit beneficial to be able to work from home.
And it's also beneficial that a lot of kids are at home right now. They can get to read these books, um, and to be able to carry on with this. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us for this interview today. I hope that these books and the merchandise continue to grow, and our viewers will see this and want to go out and get some for themselves. Tell us how and where we can how to support you, how to find the books and the merchandise.
The best way to buy my books is from my website,
Okay.
www.our-ancestries.com. You can buy books, the t-shirts, the coloring book, the activity book, everything is available on my website. You could check out some local bookstores or libraries for my book as well. If they don't have it, ask them why. They can buy my book. They can reach out to me and stock their bookstores with my book. Uh, that's the best way to support me. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me here.
You're
Um,
welcome.
been such a pleasurable conversation.
It's been such a pleasure. Now, are people able to buy these books from Nigeria as well, or is it just within Canada?
Yes, my books are coming to Nigeria in May, and
Okay,
so
that's
it's
good.
available in Nigeria. I'll be updating my website.
Okay.
They're currently being printed in Nigeria, so for sure they'll be in Nigeria in May. I've reached out to a few bookstores I've reached out to a few of the big bookstores in Nigeria, and all of them are on board to stock my books. And so as they stock the books, I will be sharing the information on my website and on my social media.
Awesome. All right, there you have it, viewers. Ekiwa, thank you again for joining us at the studio today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here and having you talk about the work that you're doing. Keep doing the good work that you are doing. This is going to be the end of our interview, and we're wrapping this up right now. That concludes our show for today. Thank you again for joining us on the GBKM network. The show is called The Discussion. I'm your host, Chelsea Okonji. Don't forget, you can download our app. Search GBKM on iOS or Android to be able to download the app so you can get notifications for live shows. You can also watch past shows, or you can check out our website at www.gbkm.tv to be able to catch up on our shows as well. Remember, every discussion starts with a topic. Thank you.
Andrea Barrett, and I'm the host of a brand new show, 360 Wellness, right here on the GBKM network. Join us Tuesday, April 27th at 7 p.m. Whether you're a stay-at-home parent, a senior, a student, a working professional, or an entrepreneur, join us for information, tips, and strategies that will keep you well and get you well. Join us live at www.gbkm.tv or download our app, GBKM, on iOS or Android. 360 Wellness. Eat well, live